Hello and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf. Now, just when we thought we were emerging from COVID-19 blues and only now have the aftermath of the pandemic to deal with, the Presidential Steering Committee hit with phase 4 of COVID-19 restrictions, reintroducing some precautionary measures on the back of a resurgence of the virus in India, Brazil and Turkey, and a slowdown of the vaccination drive as a result of the blocking of critical supply chains from India, which has now been acutely hit by the virus. The rise of vaccine nationalism has pressed home the need for countries to look inwards to their science and technology sectors, as well as the areas of research and development to see how their situation can be remedied. But where investments haven't been made in a while or have been neglected for the mundane, even in the ivory towers, what hope is there? Funding for Nigeria's education sector took a hit in the 2021 budget as the monies allocated to this sector were at their lowest percentage in the last 10 years. That's a finding by Premium Times. But it's not all bad news, as educational institutions could receive support from interventionist agencies of government set up to remedy the anomaly. One of such is the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, or TETFund, as it's better known. Tonight, we speak with its Executive Secretary, Professor Suleiman Bogoro, who was reinstated after his tenure was wrongfully terminated on the thrust of his administration in his second coming. Prof, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much, Maokpe.
Well, it's your second time around, shall we say. You were there 2014 to 2016.
Yeah.
And now you're back on the saddle. What would you say your new thrust is this time around?
It's more of a second phase of what I started in 2014. Like you rightly said, I was first appointed in 2014 by the previous regime, and 1 year, 10 months into it, I was disengaged precisely February 2016 on some issues and allegations. But mercifully, after I was disengaged, I quietly met representations on the matter. And my response, when I was invited by an investigation panel, confirmed that the allegations were baseless. Of all the allegations, I still recall, the number one was that money was diverted by my person for multiple reasons that, could not fly. And when I was given the opportunity, I established the facts with communication, official communication from the Accountant General's office, that money was used in 2013 to settle most of the ASU agreement funding requirements. And that incidentally, at that time, I was not even the executive secretary of TETFund. But upon resumption, when I was appointed, I made a case for the refund of the money, which government acknowledged and said they will try and do so. And then suddenly, somebody went out there and said, when I was looking for the person that took the money, they said I was the thief. But mercifully, it was established very firmly. And that is why this government, acting very responsibly in the circumstance of my case as it was, decided to recall me in 2019, precisely January 21st, 2019. For me, when I came in 2014, my priority was looking at those things that have contributed to the poor rating and ranking of our tertiary institutions, particularly the universities. Nigerian average towers have lagged behind, both at the continental level and international level. And I knew, as a professor and a researcher in the system, that for quite some time, for decades, barely a year or two after independence, we had allowed research engagements to weaken in favor of teaching. And I said that was faulty. Teaching could not take care of research requirements, but that if there is good research, that is what brings value addition and improves teaching. pedagogy, and all the contents and methodologies for teaching. So that's why I decided to make a case to the Board of Trustees. Please let us establish a department of R&D and Centers of Excellence. And I did that few months before I proceeded to deliver interdisciplinary research lecture at the University of Ibadan, December 2014, on institutionalization of R&D. So I can tell you, as soon as I returned, what I did was to say, hey, where have we gone back on what I initiated? And I discovered, yes, there was some tampering with what I put on ground. So I quickly went to the Board of Trustees, made a case, and they gave approval. We returned to the original name of the department, R&D Centers of Excellence Department in TETFund, but more importantly, making available more funds to support research. And for TETFund, we have two types of research grants. We have the IBR, Institution-Based Research, which has a ceiling of just 2 million naira. And then the bigger one, well, that's mainly for basic research. The bigger fund is the one we call the NRF, National Research Fund, that has a ceiling per grant of 50 million. And there, as one would understand, you could do what I would call groundbreaking, or properly put, applied research. And that's what we've been doing.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, a number of people who know you or
Yeah.
who have read your background will not be surprised
Yes.
on the emphasis you're laying on research. You're of the think tank for translating research to innovation strategies, evidence for policy and national development, which was created by the University of Ibadan Research
Correct.
Foundation.
Precisely.
So it's really no surprise that you are focusing heavily
Yeah.
on research, and perhaps a lot of people will be able to appreciate even further what you're talking about with our experience last year. In fact, the experience of the entire world, the outbreak of the COVID-19
Sure.
disease, and even more in Nigeria, because it would seem that we had almost no institution apart from NIPRID to be able to engage in terms of research in finding a cure, perhaps even a vaccine, or even medicines that could have mitigated what it was that we were going through. But looking at where we currently are, how much progress would you say that you have been able to make, first in the area of COVID-19,
Okay.
and then perhaps in other areas? Because right now we're confronted, some people might say we're confronted and a bigger than COVID-19.
Yeah. The situation, the challenges of medicine are fluid. They change every day. And one moment is COVID. Remember the other day it was Ebola. Lassa fever, they have refused to go. And whether in this country or in the neighborhood, they remain a threat. And for us, I have always said, there's a way I put it. I said, for we academics, for too long, we've been satisfied. We attribute accolades to ourselves for churning out numbers of publications rather than publications that have relevance, what I call problem-solving research. If you are a professor of medicine, whichever specialization, and you are not able to undertake research and intervention as a researcher that would change the circumstance of what is threatening society or your patients, you have failed. At TETFund, once I returned 2 years ago, I made the case that all along from 2009, and the funding started 2012, up to 2019, we had spent only about 6 billion on NRF, that is the higher research grant that I mentioned. And I said, that is inadequate for nearly 10 years. That is inadequate. Let's raise it. And I made the case to the Board of Trustees for the first time. Single NRF grant total was 5 billion in the 2019 budget. And last year, it was 7.5 billion. And we are hoping, and with all the information we have, Mr. President and the Honorable Minister of Education are very supportive. And we are expecting an approval of even a slight scale up above the 7.5 billion. Now, you could see the response across the institutions. But I added something even more importantly, that we've been funding only those that qualify to be beneficiaries. because our law says only public tertiary institutions. I made a case to the Board of Trustees. I said, if you see World Bank Centers of Excellence, research engagements, they invite non-state actors, including NGOs, research institutes, private ones. Why can't we open a window for private universities, polytechnic research institutes that are not normally, would not normally qualify for TETFund funding, and let us invite them to participate at second level, not principal investigators. That is the lead researcher for any grant, is what we call the principal investigator. They don't have to be, because we'll be breaching the law of TETFund. So let them be second level. If they are second level, they are partners anyway. And they could even share up to nearly half of the funds. And that is what enhances, because exchanging, sharing knowledge is what is the vogue.
How was that proposal received?
Oh, it was approved. I can tell you, I've been celebrating it. I want to appreciate the Board of Trustees, and the Honorable Minister is excited. We're happy to mention that at the moment, one of our NRF researchers, incidentally a lady, a professor, is leading a research approved by TETFund that on gene sequencing. And it is already a candidate recognized at the appropriate level by the World Health Organization. That excites me. That's exactly what we've been saying. Today, as I talk to you, we are holding the highest single research grant in Nigeria. No debate about that. Let me finally give you this information, that last year, we supported up to seven COVID-related research grants, with a total of, well, there is one that was first stage. If we add it all, they all come to about 260 million.
Were you able to see any results?
Oh, we did. It may interest you to know that 128 grants were approved. And I can confirm to you, we are hoping that it may almost double. I don't want to give information until the Board of Trustees approves it. But what I have that may be approved by Board of Trustees any moment from now is about double of that, nearly double.
Well, you had
over 200 research grants.
You have said before now that you would like to double the amount of research grants being given by TETFund. Some people might say it's an ambitious plan on the part of TETFund. However, the question is, how have tertiary institutions been primed to receive such funding? You have complained also about the poor quality of grant writing by
that's a good one.
by academics in Nigeria.
Yeah.
How are you able to balance that with the fact that you'd like to increase funding for research?
I just came in from Lagos yesterday, and I can tell you, I was with Professor O.S. Adegoke. This is one of the most respected geophysicists in this country, and he's holding one of the largest personal, or do we call it private, laboratories. And this man, take it from me, he is a fulfilled man. In other words, he has produced so many uncountable PhD holders, professors. Some of us are in the second, third category of those he has produced. And he is Foundation Fellow of the Academy of Science. Today he's a role model because he's fulfilled. If lecturers were looking for money, their salary is not enough, because he's engaged in productive research, quality research. He's getting the funding, and he doesn't have to go begging.
Just wondering, though, you know, if you had seen some of the grant proposals.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I do. As a professor myself, I glance through sometimes, even if a few seconds, when those approvals come, or for me to recommend to the Board of Trustees. Naturally, I'm curious as a professor. In fact, the first thing I go for, I can share this with you, is the title of a grant proposal. I am interested. Then the next thing, I take a look quickly, few seconds. What is the justification? What are the objectives? Expected outcome, methodology. I am satisfied as a professor. That gives me a bird's eye view of what that particular grant is. And I can tell you, those that are evaluating the NRF are some of the very best, better than yours truly. I can confirm this to you. We make sure we're getting the best. That's why even in the COVID research, this thing that we did, which we had, of course, Sokoto, University of Ibadan, University of Jos, Unizik, Oka, Unilag, etc., NAVDAC, and Kaduna Polytechnic that qualified. They went through rigorous evaluation with even external assessors.
Let me quickly bring this now. I know that you're also, you're very proud about the achievements on research around COVID-19, but there's also talk that TETFund has begun research funding for defense and security as well.
Correct.
What areas precisely are you looking at?
I can tell you on the list of items that I will give you a copy. The 7 grants that we supported. Last year, just in response to emergencies, as Mr. President directed TETFund to, through the Honorable Minister, we should do. We supported a research grant on UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles.
Unmanned aerial vehicles?
Yes.
The military has been doing that.
Yes. Well, you have to know what purpose. There are single-purpose UAVs. There are multiple-purpose UAVs. The one we saw at the AFIT Kaduna is dual purpose. Defense and agriculture. We visited AFID, of course, and unbelievable. Go and see the great things they are doing. AFID Kaduna Air Force Institute of Technology. In fact, they are on research. They are the best performing polytechnic on research.
But almost on a yearly basis, new universities are, let's say, confirmed now by the NUC. There seems to be a proliferation of universities. Looking at the fact that there's just one TETFund, even though I don't know, I'm not very clear if you also intervene in the area of private universities. Are they welcome to apply to TETFund?
If private institutions partner with the beneficiary institutions at second level, which I explained earlier, as second level partners on the research grant, I believe that would be fantastic, because that would be similar to non-state actors, NGOs, supporting research endeavors funded by whichever group, as it were, in this case, TETFund. So, under the Board of Trustees, I met that case 2 years ago, and they approved it. And as I'm talking to you now, a number of universities, they have won grants in partnership with our beneficiary. So, we've opened a window. Through research, they can benefit from TETFund grants.
How are you balancing that need for research vis-a-vis what a lot of universities usually approach TETFund for, which is for infrastructure, physical infrastructure in their institutions?
As soon as I came in 2014, and when I returned again last year, 2 years ago, we said, let's go into what I call the content components. The content component that it is not just buildings. It's not lecture halls. It's not just empty laboratory buildings. We want to know what are the equipment there. Are they, the derelict facilities that are there, or they are digital, soft touch facility, permit me use that. Most modern equipment in all aspects of research, whether it's environmentalism, it's medicine, call it. Today, let me say this, something I did not mention. TETFund, we are happy to say that one of our contributions in the COVID response, which the minister directed us, besides the research, was we should provide molecular labs, PCR molecular lab facilities. And we provided initially 12, 2 per geopolitical zone. And we added 2 when some institutions, including University of Medical Sciences, Ondo, had some funding, and they asked us to permit them to use the money for a molecular lab. So TETFund provided 14 molecular labs.
How are you able to balance the need to do research and also to provide the infrastructure that is needed? And these are some of the needs. Some lecture halls are too small. You go to some universities and the lecturer is using a boom mic or a megaphone to talk to give students lectures, or the classes are so crowded, or they do not even have enough chairs and desks for students. How are you able to balance that if those are the needs of the university at that point?
Yeah, well, let me say one thing before I answer the question directly. First is that TETFund, by our mandate and law, we're an interventionist agency. That was the conception. And so we are supposed to fill the gap where the normal appropriation does not do so or is unable to do so. there are a number of areas in intervention or needs of the institution that, in fact, including even the hostel, as it were. At some point, TETFund will not go into hostels. We are reluctant because he said, look, that is supposed to be a responsibility of another arm, of government, another agency, not necessarily that of TETFund. But because we are able to provide a number of facilities that was not initially thought was our top priority, we now started going into them, including hostels. The needs assessment that ASU negotiated with government. Hostels were one of the major, and if you go around, you see needs assessment hostels across. Let me say also that the issue of using microphone as a word, at some point, you had more than 1,000 seated in one class, and so we are almost exiting that massively because of TETFund intervention. We have significantly reduced that because they had to crowd them. So now we've secured and intervened, made available more classrooms, more offices for lecturers. Many institutions now, they have professorial offices, which before was not the case, and so on and so forth. We're making the atmosphere more conducive as much as our resources permit.
Well, you have talked about needing $2 billion to spur economic growth in Nigeria. Is that correct?
Okay. Oh, now you're going into the R&D thing.
Yes.
Yeah, National R&D Foundation. That is, in fact, not just 2. We don't mind if at the end it's up to 4, so that the 2 billion can come from aspects of the current revenue sharing formula, and the other 2 billion can come from totality of what R&D fund from the industry.
Is this a way? This is away from TETFund, is it?
Oh, that is our initiative, the TETFund R&D Standing Committee, and the ultimate recommendation is the emergence, God willing. And so far, as I talk to you, there is positive response and reception of this idea at the highest level in government, of course, including the Honorable Minister, the Board of Trustees of TETFund, and we are looking forward. This is the first time that the academia and industry have been brought together under a roof for the purpose of addressing the future. All we are doing in the university system, if ultimately we're not changing Nigeria's economy, we're not changing anything or improving the technology, improving governance, and totality of what Nigeria is, then we've failed our nation. That is the idea of the R&D initiative, the triple helix initially, that is academia, industry, and government. Government playing policy and legal, addressing policy and legal framework to ensure that the academia reaches out to industry. In fact, for me, I remember, I said it in a convocation lecture at Futo Owerri, December 2015, that I want to see more academics go for sabbatical to the industry than going only to educational institutions. And that is it. If there is that partnership, then research will be problem solving. And I think it's better for our country. The most competitive economies, the largest economy, the most competitive, are knowledge economy in the 21st century.
What will it take for our universities to become competitive internationally, for us to stop losing the amount of students and the amount of money that we lose to international universities?
One aspect is the emphasis on research. The other one is continued support for infrastructure that are necessary, including the one you mentioned, and I completely agree with you, the issue of hostels. We always say this, that if Nigeria, at some point during our time, we were schooling with many foreigners, non-Nigerians, within Africa and beyond. And they stayed in the hostels with us because the hostels were adequate, the quality was good, and we are looking forward to reenacting that. And that's why hostel development is one of the areas of priority, just like we're doing for ICT, so that we catch up with the rest of the world. We couldn't remain laggard. So if we do that, then we will attract students both at undergraduate and graduate level. And that will be a source of income for us. But I must say this, easily the first reference of the ranking of universities is quality of faculty, the lecturers, the personnel, immediately associated with the quality of infrastructure, research infrastructure, including laboratories, demonstration facilities out there. Those are the things that matter.
Well, it is, I mean, you sound very optimistic, and it does look like, you know, we're making progress. Your institution, you believe that, you know, even though you've only seen about 4% uptake of grants.
It's worrisome.
You know,
success rate.
Yeah.
I am worried about that bit. Believe me.
Professor Bogoro, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you.
That's the show tonight. As always, we look forward to your feedback. Please use the handle showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Good night.